There were only three of us who knew the whole story about what happened that night. Now I'm the only one that remains. The other two are dead. I'll have to deal with them later. First, I must warn the world, but I also must be very, very careful not to get caught. I am begging you to keep this entire tale a secret. This information is extremely dangerous, and I strongly advise you to never ever speak of it. God help us both if you breathe even a word of what I'm about to reveal. The night was like black coffee with misty steam oozing up from the ground. A whisper of air pushed against the thick tree branches, giving the impression of struggling body parts moving in random directions. Hard to believe that just a few minutes ago I'd been sitting in front of my computer finishing up some late night projects. Then suddenly the computer began flashing on and off, and then it went completely black. I was surrounded by crackling bright electrical discharges which lit up my face. Then I began to rise up from the chair and float through the sliding glass door, across the backyard, down a small ravine which led to the fairway, and finally to the grate. A girl and an old man were there. I had seen the girl before. Her name was Liz. Her eyes were normally lively, but now they looked lifeless. In front of us was an old rusting metal grate, which covered a huge gaping hole in the ground which went deep down into the slimy mold pits of another world. As we stood there waiting, the rumbling started, deep down rumbling as if the earth had suddenly developed hunger pains. Now massive bombs going off in the distance, then louder like the grand finale of 100 fireworks displays. And then it all stopped. They were here. An oppressive green light began to emanate from within the abyss in front of us. I glanced at the old man Stuart. The light cast a deathly glow upon his bald head. A slimy mucus-like netting began to crawl across us and started dragging us toward and then through the grate and down into the gaping hole of the ditch. The girl screamed. Then, out of the darkness, a voice. Patience, you will be told all you need to know when you are ready to understand. The voice came not from outside, but from within our minds. We continued to fall for a while, and then suddenly we slowed to a stop in a gigantic cavern. The slime that had bound us receded, and now we could move again. There were many frog-like creatures with sharp, nasty-looking teeth, their faces sticking out of the slimy green jello-y walls. They were gnawing away at bits of yellow crust. After a few bites, they slithered back into the walls to be immediately replaced by another froggy. The place smelled like a porta-potty at the end of a hot, busy day. The voice. We need your help. The old man responded. Who are you? We are a community of single-cell amoeba-like organisms which have a united intelligence. You have been brought here to help us save the world. We have much to teach you, but first, you will have to be altered. Your thought process will have to be speeded up to match ours. Now we will bring you to a special room where you can relax while the change is being accomplished. We began to float through a door that led us into a room that caught us all by surprise, filled with natural light, and the temperature was surface normal. There was a fully stocked kitchen, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a dining room, and a large living room. The voice entered our minds. Please relax for a while. We will be back with you shortly. Wait a minute, I blurted out. Just how are you planning to effect this change in us? And by the way, what are we supposed to call you? Don't worry about the process. It will be painless and quick. And about a name. Some have referred to us as One Cell. We felt One Cell's mind withdraw from ours. Immediately we began to discuss what had happened to us. Liz began. I don't know about you two, but I'm scared shitless. I think we should make a run for it while our backs are turned. Stuart laughed. Don't think it would do much good considering how they brought us here in the first place. So, we just wait for them to come in and operate on our heads? No thank you. I'm out of here. Stuart looked over at me and chuckled. $10, she's back in 10 minutes. Probably more like 5, I responded. But the joke was on us. What seemed like 5 hours had passed and she still hadn't returned. Finally, Liz walked in the door, but she was moving in slow motion, and her voice was deep and so slow it was almost unintelligible. I said, "What's wrong with you, Liz? We can't understand what you're saying." She started to speak again in slow motion, but immediately switched back to normal. "What's with the Donald Duck talk? I can't understand you." "Liz, how long were you gone?" "What do you mean? You know I was gone for only about 5 minutes. "I think what happened is that shortly after you left, Stuart and I were altered, so that our thought process was speeded up. For us, it seemed like you were gone for about 5 hours, while to you it seemed like only about 5 minutes. Then, just now, while you were talking, you were changed to match our speed of thought. Well, what do you two think they have in mind for us next?" It didn't take long to find out. Suddenly we were all sitting on the moon looking back at the Earth. How was this possible? To go to the moon without a spaceship, and to sit here and breathe comfortably without a spacesuit? Hold on, children. Your journey is just beginning. We found ourselves floating gently over the surface of what had to be Mars. Then we circled Saturn, Jupiter, Neptune, and then we left the solar system entirely for a mind-opening look at our galaxy. And then, in the flash of an eye, we were standing on a planet of unknown location. It had a rubbery feel to the ground, and it sounded like we were crushing potato chips under our feet. The night was lit by a large gray moon that cast eerie shadows across the ground. A weird-looking tree walked off ahead of us, taking 2 smaller trees with it. Then we saw a huge telescope into which one cell told us to take a look. It was a beautiful spiraled galaxy. I had a strange premonition. "The Milky Way?" I asked. "Yes," one cell supplied. "You are viewing it from a planet in the Andromeda Galaxy. I have one more stop for you before returning you to your habitat." And there we were, below a small hill. 3 men were nailed to crosses. Then an earthquake began and all 3 crosses fell to the ground. One of them fell in such a way that the man nailed to it was facing up. I edged in closer to get a better look. The man below me was young, slim, Middle Eastern, with longish brown hair and a beard. He suddenly opened his eyes and smiled at me. "Jesus Christ," I exhaled. Then I realized what I'd said. Sorry, it just shocked me when you opened your eyes. No sweat, better than Jesus effing Christ, right? So you're getting the grand tour. I'd like to stay and visit, but I have a few things to do first. See you later. Back in our habitat, Stuart remarked, "I get the feeling we're but ants to these beings." "I agree," I said. "How could beings this powerful need us for anything? I don't even know what they look like." Suddenly a microscope appeared on the table in front of me. I looked inside and suddenly burst out laughing. As I had focused the microscope, there was a textbook drawing of an amoeba, complete with labels and a name badge that read "One Cell." We were all suddenly getting hungry and tired. After dinner, we all went to bed. I awoke the next morning to the sound of laughter coming from the kitchen, along with the smells of bacon, eggs, hash browns, and coffee. As I stumbled toward the kitchen, I was stunned to see the chef was none other than the man from the cross. He was joking with Liz that he would be glad to turn the water into wine but didn't want to kill off a couple million one cells. And then he turned to me and smiled. "Thomas effin' Harbuckle, how's it going?" I blushed. "Don't worry, Tom, I'm not going to give you a bunch of pamphlets and try to get you back to church." You folks were wondering about training. Turns out I've been elected drill sergeant. Call me Jess. Now everybody down and give me 30. He laughed and with an infectious smile said, "Okay, let's get on with the training." Instantly, we were all seated in a grassy meadow next to a beautiful lake nestled into the foothills of a nearby mountain. Jess, now dressed in a robe and sandals, addressed us. "Let me clear up one thing from the start. Despite everything you may have heard or read about me, there is no difference between me and you. I am indeed the Son of God, but so are you. We are all one with Him who created us. All things are possible with a mind that has aligned itself with the powers of love. Light abolishes darkness. Love abolishes fear. From the creation comes only perfect love. The problem with you is the manner in which your minds developed. At some time during your leap to intelligence, you developed the insane idea that you were separate from the universe, the light, and each other. You came to believe that you were capable of being attacked, vulnerable to sickness, disease, and death. The good news is that you do not have to live in this insane world that you have created for yourselves. You have free will. You can use it to make your choices and decisions, to align yourself only with love." Liz had had enough and blurted out, "This sounds like a lot of hooey. How are we supposed to use this knowledge to help save the Earth?" "I'm just laying out the groundwork for future training, but if you would like a brief demonstration, I will take each of you out on a little field trip." My heart caught in my throat. I was looking down from the edge of a very steep cliff with an endless drop-off. I should mention that I have agoraphobia, or the fear of heights. Now here I was looking down from a cliff that must be thousands of meters from the ground. It was just me and Jess. "Hey man, I'm detecting a lot of fear from you. Fill your heart with love. Let the light and the power of the universe wash away all your fear. You can do anything. Thou art God. Now take my hand and come fly with me." And with those words, Jess stepped off the cliff, taking me with him. We started falling headfirst straight down. He steered us close to the cliff line, and I was filled with an unbelievable love. It washed through me, and suddenly I felt no fear, no pain, no concern, only love. Finally, we angled away from the cliff and began to slow down. We were now gliding gently over a beautiful lake. While I was captivated by the scenery, Jess gently removed his hand from mine and slipped back a few meters behind me. A few minutes later, when I landed in a grassy meadow, I was astounded to look back and see Jess still hovering behind me. I couldn't believe it. I had flown in and landed on my own. When he came down to join me, he instructed me to go ahead and fly across the lake and land next to the tree on the other side. He let out a howling laugh and then vanished.